that the witness take the declaration.
Svečano izjavljujem da ću govoriti
I solemnly
istinu,
declare that I
cijelu
will speak the
istinu i
truth,
ništa
the whole
osim istine.
truth, and nothing but the truth.
If you'd like to take a seat. Yes, Mr. Gribble.
Your Honor, as a preliminary matter, B 1461 will give his entire testimony in open session. He will be referring to sexual crimes against a number of victims. I will not elicit those names during my examination of him, but should they become relevant or should anybody seek to ask the identity, I would ask that the identities of those victims be taken in closed session.
Certainly.
B 1461, I'd ask you to take a look at this piece of paper, and if it could please be assigned an exhibit number. It's the pseudonym sheet.
Your Honor's prosecution's exhibit number 437 under seal.
Sir, I'd ask you to take a look at the name printed on the top of that sheet. Is that your name?
Da, tačno.
That's right, yes.
For the purposes of protecting your identity, I will refer to you as B 1461 during the course of my questions to you. Sir, I'd ask you to begin your testimony today by telling us from where were you born and where did you grow up?
Rođen sam opština Zvornik.
I was born in the Zvornik municipality, and the place is called Divić, where I went to school and worked and lived until the beginning of the war.
Can you give us some idea regarding the size of the village of Divić?
To mjesto je imalo
The village had
prilike
a population of,
negdje oko
that is to say, about 300 houses
stanovnika,
and approximately 2,500 inhabitants.
malo mjesto.
It's a small place.
What is your ethnicity?
Musliman.
I'm a Muslim.
And was there a predominant ethnic group that lived in the village of Divić?
Većina muslimansko življi.
The majority were
Jedna srpska
Muslims,
porodica
one
i
Serbian family,
petero iz miješanih
and
brakova sa
5
muslimanima.
from mixed marriages with Muslims that were ethnic Serbs married to Muslims.
I want to ask you some questions about the geography of Zvornik. Would I be correct in saying that the town of Zvornik itself lies on the western bank of the Drina River?
Da.
Yes,
And is the town of Zvornik, and in fact all of Zvornik municipality, in the Republic of Bosnia and Herzegovina, or at that time?
Da.
yes,
Are you familiar with the town of Mali Zvornik?
Da.
yes.
Can you describe to the chamber where Mali Zvornik is with respect to Zvornik itself?
Mali Zvornik se nalazi u
Mali Zvornik is located in the Republic of
na
Serbia,
samoj granici Bosne i
right up on the
Hercegovine.
border with Bosnia-Herzegovina, across the Drina River.
And would it be fair to say that Mali Zvornik lies directly across, Mali Zvornik in Serbia lies directly across from Zvornik in Bosnia?
Da.
Yes,
Are there ways to cross the Drina between Zvornik and Mali Zvornik?
Da, preko
Yes.
mostova.
across the bridges.
And how many bridges connect those two different municipalities?
U opštini Zvorniku
In the municipality of Zvornik, 3 bridges.
And in the winter and spring of 1992, were there border controls on those bridges?
pred početak rata jesu.
Yes, prior to the beginning of the war.
Now, can I ask you to describe where is Divić with respect to the town of Zvornik?
Divić se nalazi 2,5
Divić is
kilometra
2.5
od grada
kilometers
Zvornika
from the town of Zvornik
prema
in the
putu grada
direction of Sarajevo, on the Sarajevo Road.
And how far away is the village of Divić from the river Drina itself?
Pa on leži na rici Drini.
Well, it lies on the Drina River, on the banks.
Can somebody in the village of Divić look across the Drina and into Serbia?
Da, pomoću
Yes,
čamaca.
with boats.
Mr. Groom, do you think we can get the year of his birth
Yes, Your Honor.
in open session?
Yes. Sir, could you please tell us the year of your birth?
Datum rođenja i godinu.
My date of birth, do you want the year or the
Simply the year.
day or
67.
1967?
Now, I think there was some misunderstanding or mistranslation in my last question. My question to you was, can you see across, not necessarily cross the river, but can you see across into Serbia from the village of Divić?
Da, vidim.
Yes, you can see it, yes.
I want to draw your attention to the spring of 1992, more specifically March of 1992. Did you notice anything unusual occurring in Serbia across from your village of Divić?
Da,
Yes,
primijetio sam
I did
artiljerijsko
notice
naoružanje
something.
koje
I
je
noticed
postavljeno na
artillery weapons that had
drugoj
been
strani rijeke.
positioned on the opposite side of the river.
Can you give us some idea about the quantity and size of these weapons that you could see?
Više je bilo protivavionski oklopni
There
sredstava.
were anti-aircraft
Nešto manje
armored vehicles and
bilo
somewhat
u
fewer
početku,
tanks.
poslije
That
bilo-
was to begin with. Later on, there were others too.
And approximately how many tanks did you see in March of 1992?
Za nekih 10-ak.
About 10.
And were the artillery and tanks, were they directed in any particular direction?
Sve cijevi su bile okrenute prema
All the
bosanskoj strani.
barrels were directed towards the Bosnian side.
Now, prior to you seeing this buildup or this placement of artillery and tanks in Serbia, was there any violence that you were aware of in your village or in the surrounding area to your village?
Ne, nije bilo.
No, there wasn't.
Did the people of Divić do anything in response to seeing these weapons across the river?
Ne znam.
I don't know.
Was there a rally in early April 1992 in the village of Divić?
Miting je održan u gradu
The
Zvornik.
rally was held in the town of Zvornik.
And did you attend that rally?
Da.
Yes.
And what was the purpose of that rally?
Svrha tog mitinga
The
je
purpose
bila
of the
da
rally was
ljudi nastave normalan život.
for people to continue their normal lives, living the way they had
ne bi
before,
došlo do nekog
and
rata
to
ili
avoid a war or anything like that.
After that rally, did the people of Divich form a crisis staff and begin to make some preparations for the defense of their village?
kada su primijetili barikade
When they
i
noticed the barricades,
kada su osjetili da će doći
and
do
when they felt that
tog rata, onda su
a
počeli
war
da se samo
would
organizuju
take
i
place, they began to
formiraju
organize
krizni štab.
themselves and set up a crisis staff in the village of Divić.
Can you describe what, if any, weapons this crisis staff or the people who had prepared to defend themselves in Divich had?
U tom kriznom štabu
In the
je
crisis
bilo
staff,
prilike
there
18 do
was
20
about
pušaka.
18 to 20 rifles.
Nešto je bilo privatnih, nešto je
Some were
bilo
privately owned,
mjesnih zajednici ili
some
općinika,
were
tako da
obtained
nešto
from the local community or municipality, or I don't know how it came about.
Are you familiar with a location named Kulegrad in the municipality of Zvornik?
Da.
Yes?
Can you assist the chamber by describing where Kulegrad is with respect to the town of Zvornik?
Kulagrad se nalazi
Kulagrad is situated
na uzvišenju više grada Zvornika.
on an elevation above the town of Zvornik.
And is Kulegrad in Serbia or in Bosnia?
U Bosni.
In Bosnia.
Did there come a time when you saw Kulegrad being shelled?
Da.
Yes.
What is your best recollection of the time period during which Kulegrad was shelled?
Da su tenkovi ispaljivali granate
The
na
tanks
Kulagrad sa
fired
srbijanske
shells
strane.
on Kulagrad from the
Područja
Serb
iznad
side
centrale.
around the hydroelectric power plant.
And can you assist the chamber in giving the date or the dates to the best of your recollection when this occurred?
To se dogodilo u
It occurred
aprilu
in
posle
April.
pada Zvornika.
after the fall of Zvornik.
And did you yourself see the shells coming from Serbia and hitting Kulegrad?
Da.
Yes.
Around the same period, did you see something in the Drina that indicated to you that there was violence elsewhere in Zvornik?
Da.
Yes.
Primijetili smo leševe
We noticed some
koji
corpses
Drina nosi.
flowing down the Drina
To
River.
su bili neki mrtvi ljudi.
There was some dead people and some livestock, things like that.
Can you approximate the number of corpses that you yourself observed floating down the Drina?
Ne znam tačan broj, ali
I don't
mislim
know
da
the exact number, but I
smo
think
prijavili
that
par njih
we
koji su
reported
odvezli i
them,
više nisu dolazili nazad do te
and
ljude.
several of them turned up to take the people away. I don't know the exact number.
Are you familiar with the name Marko Pavlovich?
Da.
Yes.
How do you know this person?
Prije ga nisam poznavao,
I didn't know him
je
before,
dolazio na
but he used to come to Divić,
dolazio u krizni štab
to
na
the
pregovore i
crisis staff
tražio da
for
se preda
negotiations,
oružje.
and he asked that the weapons be
Došao je
handed
prvi put
over.
sa
The
jednim
first time he
čovjekom koji
came
je
was with a man
imao dogovor sa jednim
who
iz
had an
Srbije da
agreement
ide
with
na
someone from
cigare.
Serbia to go and buy some cigarettes.
Tamo su ga za
And
vojska
the
je to bila dovezla
Serb
do Ljubljane i
army
onda je došao
arrested
sa
him,
Markom Pavlovićem.
brought him in, and he came with Marko Pavlović.
Od kriznog štaba sam saznao da
And
se
from the
zove
crisis
Marko
staff,
Pavlović.
I learnt his name, that his name was in fact Marko Pavlović.
How many times did you see this person, Marko Pavlovich, in the village of Divić?
2 puta.
Twice.
And can you approximate the times or the dates when you saw Marko Pavlović?
Posljednji put je bio 22.
The last time was on the 22nd of May,
22. aprila,
the 22nd of April,
18. aprila,
the 18th of April, that kind of thing.
You've testified that he asked that weapons be handed over. Did the people of Divic hand over weapons to Marko Pavlović?
ne.
No.
Prvo su tražili da,
First of all,
da nam da neku
they
garanciju,
asked him to give us some sort of guarantee,
potpisati
and he
garanciju,
said that
ali
he
da
could
ona ništa
sign
ne
the
znači.
guarantee, but it was a worthless piece of paper as far as we were concerned.
What happened in response to the refusal of the people of Divic to turn over their weapons to Marko Pavlović?
Kako mislite?
How do you mean?
What happened after this refusal? Did anything happen after the people of Divic refused to hand over their weapons?
Ništa naročito.
Nothing special.
Did there come a time when the village of Divic came under attack?
Da.
Yes.
When, to the best of your recollection, did that occur?
To je bilo negdje oko
That was
26.
sometime
aprila,
around the
posle
26th
pada
of
Kulegrada.
April, after the fall of Kulagrad.
Can I ask you, how did the attack begin? What was the first thing that you recall happening?
Tog jutra kada s-
That morning,
napad na
when the
Divić,
attack on Divic started,
tražili su preko rijeke Drini.
they asked from across the river Drina, that is to say on the Serbian side, they asked the inhabitants of Divic to surrender their weapons. And they said they didn't have any more confidence in Kulagrad, and we were left on our own.
And what happened?
I poslije toga je uslijedio prvi
And
napad
after
koji je
that, the first attack
počeo sa
followed
srbijanske strane.
from the Serb side, started from the Serb side.
Can you please describe specifically what occurred during the course of that attack?
Početak tog napada je
The beginning of the attack
otpočet negdje oko otprilike 10
was
sati i trajao
at
je
around 10 o'clock roughly,
2 sata.
and it went on for 2
Poslije
hours.
toga je uslijedila jedna pauza.
After that, there was a pause, a
i
lull,
ponovo
and
trajao napad
then the
otprilike
attack continued
na sat vremena.
for about an hour.
The witness will have to clarify what he means by that.
When you use the word attack, can you please be specific about people involved, types of equipment involved? What exactly did you observe when you use the word attack? Give us your specific observations.
Pa mislim da je napad,
Well, I think the attack,
odnosno napad je izvođen sa
or
srbijanske
rather
strane.
the
s tim
attack was launched from the
mogućim sredstvima
Serbian
koji su
side with
posjedovali,
all
odnosi se
possible
na
means
artiljeriju
available, and this refers to artillery,
I izvođen je
And
po prostorima našeg mjesta.
the attack was on our place, Divic.
When you say artillery, did shells hit the town or village of Divic?
Da.
Yes.
And were you able to see from where they were fired?
Nisam sve u početku sam vidio.
I didn't see all of it, but I did see the beginning.
A convenient place to pause, Your Honor?
Yes, we'll adjourn now. Witness B1461. We're going to adjourn now for 20 minutes. During the adjournment and any others which there may be while you're giving evidence, don't speak to anybody about it until it's over, and don't let anybody speak to you about it, and that does include the members of the prosecution team. So don't speak to anybody about your evidence while you're giving it. Could you be back, please, in 20 minutes? We'll adjourn.
All rise. Will you believe? Please be seated.
Yes, Mr. Groom.
B1461, we finished just before the break with you describing your observations about what was occurring on the Serbian side of the river. Can you please describe what your observations were with respect to the attack occurring in the village itself?
Pa, kao što sam rekao, taj napad je vođen
Well, as I've already said,
sa
this attack
njihovim sredstvima,
was
odnosno artiljerijom
carried
koja se
out by
nalazila
this
na
equipment of theirs, or rather
drugoj
their
strani Drine,
artillery, which was on the other side of the Drina,
sa
rather in
određenim
Serbia.
snajperima ili lakim naoružanjem.
There were snipers and light
Onda poslije sam
weapons,
primijetio jedan
and
transporter
then
koji
I
se
noticed
kretao
later
drugom stranom Drine,
a
odnosno
personnel
Srbiji,
carrier which was
koji je
moving
došao sa druge strane našeg mjesta.
along the other side of the Drina River, that is to say in Serbia, and which was coming close to our town.
Did there come a time when armed people actually entered the village of Divić itself?
Toga dana nisu, ali su
Not on
došli
that
sutra
day,
ujutro.
but they came the following morning.
And can you describe approximately how many armed people entered the village the following morning?
Baš ne znam, ali
I
mislim
don't
da je
know
bila jedna
exactly,
jedinica koja je došla i
but I think there was
izgonila taj narod
one
iz kuća
unit
i
that came
naredila
and that
da
expelled people from their
se
homes
usmjeri prema pravcu
and
hotela koji se nalazi
ordered
na
them to go towards the hotel,
granici mjesta.
which was towards the end of our town.
And what is the name of that hotel?
Hotel Vidikovac.
Vidikovac Hotel.
The armed people that you saw in your village, could you describe what they were wearing?
Bili su u maskirnim uniformama.
They were in camouflage uniforms.
Oznake se ne sjećam koje su
I
nosili.
don't remember the insignia
Mislim
they
da su
had.
bile
I think
probojke takozvane,
it was the so-called
da li zastava Srbije.
tricolor flag. I don't know whether it's the flag of Serbia, I can't say
Nosili su
exactly.
svi automatsko naoružanje.
And they all carried automatic weapons.
Did you recognize any, well, let me ask you this first. The people who, or the armed people that came into the town, were their faces covered or obstructed in any way?
Ne, nisu bili.
No, they weren't.
Did you recognize any of these people as being from the area of Zvornik?
Ne, nisam.
No, I didn't recognize them.
Did there come a time later that day when the men from the town of, or village of Divić were assembled in front of the mosque?
Da, to je
Yes, that's correct.
And upon whose instruction were they ordered to assemble there?
vojska ili
The army,
jedinica koja je došla u
the unit that came into the village.
And approximately how many men were assembled in front of the mosque?
Negdje otprilike 100 ljudi.
Approximately 100 men.
Were you among that group of 100?
Da.
Yes.
What happened in front of the mosque at that time?
Kamion tražili su da se preda naoružanje.
They asked for weapons to be handed over.
Koliko su toga tražili, ja tačno ne znam.
I don't know how many weapons they were actually looking for,
Odredili su neko
and
mjesto tamo na
if
stadionu.
we could not give the weapons to them, then people were supposed to hand these weapons over secretly, if I can put it that way, at a particular place, they said, near the stadium.
And were weapons handed over?
Da.
Yes.
And did they conduct a search of houses for additional weapons?
Da.
Yes.
Vremenu dok smo mi bili pred džamijom,
While we were in front of the mosque,
vojnici su davali
other
kućama i
soldiers
precizirali
were searching houses,
kućama i
looking for things in houses.
I want to now draw your attention to the next day. Can you please describe what occurred on that day?
Sljedećeg dana
The
slijedila je smjena
next
između te
day,
vojske i policije
the army was replaced by the police.
tu na, kako da kažem, na
And
dežurstvu posle te
how
vojske.
should I put this? They were there on duty after
Uveli su
the
policijski
military.
čas,
They imposed a
negdje
curfew.
10-11 sati uveče
It
do
was from
5-6
10
sati
or
ujutro.
11 o'clock in the evening until 5 or
Tada
6
smo mogli
o'clock in the
ići
morning.
u grad Zvornik.
Then we could go to the
Sa
town
ličnim
of
kartama gdje smo
Zvornik
dobivali
with our
propusnice
personal
sa kojima
IDs,
smo
and
mogli
then
kretati
in
u
town we got passes which
vremena
made it
smo
possible
mogli
for us
dobiti
to move about
propusnice koje
town.
su važile za
After a while, we
Republiku
managed
Srbiju,
to
za
get
Mali Zvornik.
passes that were valid in the Republic of Serbia, namely in Mali Zvornik.
And who was issuing these passes?
Propusnice su prvo izdavali u
These
Hotel
passes
Drina u
were
Zvorniku,
first
a
issued
posle
at
su
the Drina
izdavali u
Hotel in Zvornik,
Zvornik.
and after that at the SUP in Zvornik.
And when they were issued at the Drina Hotel, who was the person, or what function did that person serve who issued these passes?
Osoba je bila u civilu, a koji
The
položaj imala ne znam.
person wore civilian clothes, and I don't know what position this person held.
With the pass, were you yourself issued with a pass?
Yes.
The pass that you were issued with, would it have allowed you to have traveled outside the municipality of either Zvornik or Mali Zvornik? Could you have gone further than those two municipalities?
Tačno ne znam, a
I
nisam
don't
ni
know
probao da idem dalje.
exactly, and I didn't try to go further either.
The Serbian police that you described, were they members of the local police force?
Mislim da jesu bili.
I think they were.
Did there come a time when the police no longer appeared to be in charge, but they appeared to have been replaced by the army once again?
Da.
Yes.
And can you give us some idea about when that occurred?
Negdje oko 22. maja
Around the 22nd of May,
uslijedila smjena te policije sa vojskom.
the police was replaced by the military. I don't know the military people who came in, but they started creating problems in Divić. Interpreter's note, could the witness please be asked to speak up?
The interpreters are asking if you could speak a little bit more loudly. Can I ask you to describe in a little more detail what you mean when you refer to the creation of problems?
Pa, na primjer, da su
Well, for
zaustavljene žene po
example,
ulici,
they stopped women in the
oduzimali
street
nakit koji su
and
imali,
they took away their
da su
jewelry.
odvozili auta koje smo mi imali,
They drove away the
da
cars
su
we had.
dolazili po kućama
They
tražeći novac,
went to people's houses looking for
pretraživali
money.
kuće,
They
pa su
searched
sve što moglo da se
houses.
nosi, to su nas.
They took away everything they could take away.
Now, from the period of time when the men were gathered in front of the mosque and surrendered weapons until this time now, towards the end of May, was there any armed resistance from the people of Divić?
Ne,
No.
Did there come a time during this period when a number of buses came into the town?
kada je došla ta vojska poslije policije,
When this military came in after the police, they said to us that we were not safe in that
treba da
place
nas isele odatle.
and that they should move us out.
Rekli su nam da imamo vremena 2
They
sata.
told us that we
Međuvremenu
had
su stigli autobusi,
2
negdje
hours.
otprilike 11.
In the meantime, buses arrived, about 11 of them, and they said that they would transfer us to Olovo, to the town of Olovo.
And where is Olovo located with respect to Zvornik?
Na putu za Sarajevo.
On the
bliže
road
Sarajevu.
to Sarajevo. It's closer to Sarajevo.
And approximately how many people from Divić were placed on these buses to be taken to Olovo?
Negdje otprilike 500 osoba.
About 500 persons.
And did that include people of both sexes and of all ages?
Da, ljudi,
Yes.
žene, djeca.
Men,
Svi
women, children of all ages.
Of these 500, were they all Muslim?
Da.
Yes.
Was the bus able to reach Olovo?
Nisu nikada.
Never.
And did the bus have to turn around and return to Zvornik?
Od Hampjeska bili smo zaustavljeni
At Han Piesak, we were stopped. We waited for about
i
2
rekli su nam
hours.
da jednostavno ne možemo
And
dalje
we
ići,
were
da su tamo
told that
vodeni
we
neki
simply
borbi
could
tamo.
not go on, that there was some kind of
Poslije toga smo
fighting going
svratili
on there or whatever.
Niku,
Then they
gdje smo
returned us to Zvornik.
također bili zaustavljeni između
And we
Milića i
were
Vlasovice,
stopped
gdje
yet
smo
again
prenoćili.
between Milići and Vlasenica, where
Drugi dan
we
smo
spent the night.
Došli do Zvornika i
The second day, we
pristupili,
arrived
čekali smo
in
negdje otprilike
Zvornik,
sat, dva
and we
vremena.
waited for about an hour or two
Onda
in
su nas
front of the
povezli u
soup
pravcu
building.
Tuzle,
Then they took us in the direction of
smo do-
Tuzla.
uzvišenja,
We came to an elevation,
mjesta Crni vrh koji smo
or
mi
rather
zvali
a place
Safadi.
we called Crni
Tu smo
Vrh.
također bili zaustavljeni.
That is where we were stopped yet again.
Negdje otprilike sat vremena smo čekali.
We waited for about
i
an
onda smo
hour,
bili vraćeni za
and
Zvornik,
then we were
autobusku
returned
stanicu
to Zvornik, to the Zvornik bus station.
What time or when did you return to Zvornik after the second attempt to leave?
negdje polovina dana.
Around midday, approximately.
And what happened upon your return to Zvornik for the second time?
Po dolasku na autobusku stanicu,
Upon our
a vojska koja
arrival
je bila tu
in
naredila
front
je
of
da
the
izađemo iz
bus
autobusa,
station,
svi
the
muškarci.
military men who were there ordered us to get off the
Onda su
bus,
nas
all the men
odveli.
that is. Then they
Stariji od 60,
separated
mlađi od
us.
18.
That is to
Po
say,
njihovom viđenju,
those who were older than 60 and younger than
vratili
18, the
se u
way they
autobus,
saw it.
koji nisu odveli
Then
su
they
na
returned others to the
sredine, odnosno
bus, and those that were not
bolničku
taken by
stanicu.
bus were taken to the sports stadium in Zvornik.
The men that were separated from the rest of the group, can you tell us approximately how many men were in that group?
Sto 74.
174.
Now, were you taken to a building, a specific building near the sports stadium?
Nedaleko od stadiona.
Not far away from the stadium, right by the Zvornik municipality. This is the administration building of a company called Novi Izor.
And were all of the group of 174 men placed into that building?
Da.
Yes,
Smješteni smo u jednu prostoriju.
we were
koja je
put
bila
into a
premala za
room
toliko ljudi.
that was too small to take so many people.
Did there come a time when you were addressed by the Serb mayor of Zvornik?
Da.
Yes,
What is his name?
Brano Grujić.
Brano Grujić.
And what did he say to yourself and the other men in that room?
Rekao je da
He said
način imaju imena tih ljudi koji
that
su trenutno tu.
the names of the people who were there should be recorded, that we would get something to do, that we would go out to do something, and that we should sign some kind of paper recognizing the government that came in, or rather some kind of loyalty certificate.
Did you sign such a certificate?
Ne.
No.
Did other men in the building or in the room sign that certificate?
Mislim da nije niko potpisao. Nisu ni
I
tražili.
think that no one signed it. They didn't even ask for it later.
Did there come a time when 11 men were removed from that room and you never saw those 11 men again?
Da.
Yes,
Posle nekoliko vremena,
after a while,
boravka tu otprilike nekoliko sati.
after we'd stayed there for about
došla
a
su
few
dva vojnika
hours,
koja su
two
objasnila da
soldiers came
traže
who
10
explained that they were looking for
vlasnika koji treba da idu sa njima da
10
pregledaju te njihove kuće.
homeowners who were supposed to accompany them on the search of their houses, and then another 10, and that this would go on until they had checked all the houses.
Were you ever taken from that room to search your house?
Ne.
No,
How long did you remain in that room before you were taken from it?
Tu smo prenoćili 2 noći.
we spent
bili smo
2
negdje oko
nights
2,5
there,
dana.
and we were there for about 2.5 days.
You've described the room as being too small for the number of people in it. Can I ask you in a sentence or two to give the chamber some idea about the conditions inside that room?
Sasvim dovoljno, mogli smo svi da stojimo. Nismo mogli svi da
There was
sjedimo.
enough room for all of us to
Odnosno da ležimo
stand
i-
up. All of us could not sit or lie down or any such thing.
Were you fed while you were there?
Jesmo.
Yes, we were.
How would you characterize the amount of food that you were given?
Nešto sasvim malo, čini mi se da je bilo nešto.
Very, very
neko
little.
mazanje.
I think
da je neko
there
slatko
was
bilo,
some
pa
kind
hljeba
of
i
spread to put on
marmelada, čini mi se.
bread, and I think that there was marmalade, jam, whatever. There
Poslije
was
nam je jedan
something
vojnik
sweet.
rekao da
Afterwards, a
ćemo dobiti malo
soldier
više
said to
hrane
us that we'd get a bit more food.
nakon vremena.
After a while, that is.
When you were taken from this room, where were you brought?
Iz te prostorije su nam rekli da se ukrcamo u autobuse koji su
They
bili na
told us to get out of that room and to board the buses that were in front over there in Zvornik. And then they transferred us to Chelopek, or rather the cultural center at Chelopek.
Now, Chelopek is the name of another village or another area in the Zvornik municipality. Is that not correct?
Da.
Yes.
And the cultural center, would you please describe the type, what would be the ordinary purpose that a building called a cultural center would be used for in this area?
Gdje se nalazio dom kulturi, tu je bila autobuska stanica.
The bus station was where the cultural center was. It was the local bus station. There was also a store and there was a restaurant. There was a building behind this store, and that's where the cultural center was. There was a stage in the building, and behind this building was a small room that was used as a toilet. And next to that building was yet another restaurant, or a smallish room that was used as a restaurant.
How many buses were used to move you and others up to the Chelopek Dom Culture Center?
Sa 2-3 autobusa.
2 or 3 buses.
And were there guards, armed guards, accompanying the men as they were transported to the cultural center?
Da.
Yes.
And how many men altogether, approximate if you need to, were transported from the room up to the Chelopek Dom Cultural Center?
čovjeka su prevođeni.
162 men were transferred.
Your Honor, the prosecution will be tendering a binder of exhibits with 4 photographs. Could I ask that a number be assigned at this time?
Your Honors, Prosecution Exhibit 438.
Going to ask that the witness be shown, and we'll use the sanction system, if it works today. We're going to ask that the witness, his monitor be set accordingly. I'm going to ask that you take a look at the photograph before you. It's Prosecution Exhibit 438, tab 1. Do you recognize what's depicted in this photograph?
Da.
Yes,
To je ta zgrada gdje smo bili zatvoreni.
that's the building where we were
Ova prva koja se vidi
detained.
da je
The first one.
trošna zgrada, to je služilo kao
You can
WC,
see that
ova
it's
veća
a
je
dilapidated building, the
Ova gore
first one. It was
popreko
used as a
što je
toilet. The other one is the cultural
autobuska
center.
stanica
And
i
then there's this
kafana,
bus station and
restoran i
the
prodavnica.
restaurant and the store.
Ova druga sa lijeve strane
The
je
other one on the left-hand
manji
side
restoran,
is this
manji
smallish
prostorija koja je
restaurant,
služila
or
kao
rather this smallish room that was used as a restaurant.
Would it be fair to say that that in front of the building furthest away from us in the photograph, that is the road connecting Chelopek and Zvornik?
Ovaj koji se vidi sa strane, to je sporedni neki put.
This road that you can see on the side is some kind of a small road, whereas the other one is the main road that goes through Chelopek.
That's the road I'm referring to, the main road. Is that the road that is visible at the back of the building, or the front of the building, as it were? And would I be correct in
The
saying...
interpreters did not hear the answer.
Can you please repeat your answer?
Da, to je taj.
Yes, that's the road.
Would I be correct in saying that the photographer who took that picture was standing at the back of the building, or the complex of buildings?
Yes.
I'd ask you to look at Prosecution Exhibit 438, Tab 2. Do you recognize what's depicted in this photograph?
Je prikazana autobuska stanica.
What is depicted is the bus station,
Nalazila prodavnica,
the building where the store was, the restaurant,
a iza te zgrade se
and
nalazio
behind
taj dom.
that building was this cultural center.
Finally, Prosecution Exhibit 438, Tab 3. Is this one of the buildings that make up part of that complex where you were held?
Da, ta zgrada je
Yes.
služila kao WC.
That building was used as a toilet.
For how long were you detained in the Dom Cultural Center at Čelopek?
Prilike mjesec dana.
About a month.
Are you familiar with a person by the name of Sudan Repic?
Prije rata nisam poznao tu osobu, a
Before the war, I did not know this person. But
Batkoviću saznao sam da se
during
ta
my
osoba
stay in
zove
Batković,
Repić, koja je
I found out that this person who came to the cultural center in Čelopek was called Dušan Repić.
Going to ask you to look at Prosecution Exhibit 438, Tab 4, on the screen in front of you. Do you recognize the person depicted in these photographs?
Da, to je
Yes.
osoba
That's the person
pod imenom Repić.
named Repić.
Going to ask you now to describe some of the events that occurred while you were kept in captivity in Čelopek. And let me begin by asking you to describe generally the living conditions under which you and the other men were kept during your period of incarceration there.
Uslovi su bili nikakvi. Kada smo prvi dan došli u
The
Dom kulture, imali smo
Conditions were more than bad.
podmetače, odnosno
The first day we came,
neki tanje dušeke.
we had some kind of thin mattresses.
Nismo imali
We
dovoljno vode, nismo imali
did
dovoljno
not have
hrane.
enough water, we did not have
Na
enough
početku smo
food.
mogli izlaziti u WC.
In the
čak i
beginning, we could
cijeli
go
te zgrade, odnosno
out
to
to the
zabranili.
toilet, and then we could even sit in front of that building,
tri
but then
dana
they
nismo dobili
forbade that
uopšte hrane.
too. The first 3 days we
Onda
didn't
smo
get
molili
food
te
at
stražare
all,
koji
and
su
then
bili tu.
we asked the guards
smo im
who
novac da
were
nam
there, we gave them
kupi nešto za
money,
jesti.
and we asked them to buy something for
Oni
us
su
to
nam
eat.
donosili sasvim malo hrane,
They brought
tu se
us
nisu nikad vraćali.
very little food, and they never brought us any change.
Ta prostorija je imala otprilike negdje 10 prozora koji
This
su bili
room
zatvoreni.
had
Imala
about
je
10
dva vrata.
windows that were closed. It had 2 doors.
Jedna su bila uvijek zakućana,
One door was always
druga
locked,
su-
and
da smo se mi služili,
the
bila
other one
zakućana
that
lancem.
we used was locked with a chain.
During the times that these doors were not locked, were there armed guards at the facility?
Stražari su bili ispred te zgrade
The guards were in front of the building.
naoružani.
They were armed.
Would it be fair to say that the building of the Dom Culture Center was on a road, a busy road, upon which traffic frequently traveled?
Prilike tako.
Well, that's the way it was, more or less.
Did there come a time when the people that were detained in Čelopek were forced to give up all of their identification papers and any other personal documents that they may have had?
Da.
Yes.
U početku su tražili
At first,
neki od vojnika.
some of the soldiers, I don't know exactly which ones, asked for us to hand over our belts and shoelaces. Then
grupa koja je tražila da
a group came asking us to hand over all our documents and everything we had, money, jewelry, all the documents we had.
The men that asked you to hand over the documents and everything that you had, did you recognize them as being from the Zvornik municipality?
Nisam ga prepoznao.
I did not recognize him. I don't know where they came from.
Were you able to identify their accents?
Akcenat je bio srpski, odnosno srbijanski akcent.
Their accents were Serbian, coming from Serbia.
Did there come a time when fathers and sons were made to line up and to record their names, identifying them as father and son?
Da.
Yes, that's what they were required to do.
And who initiated this? Who were the people that made these fathers and sons identify themselves as such?
Osoba zvana Repić sa svojom grupom.
The person called Repić with his group.
Was your father detained with you?
Da.
Yes.
Was your uncle detained with you?
Da.
Yes.
During this period, did members of Repić's group interrogate some of the men that were being detained in the center?
Bila je tu još i druga grupa koja je
There was another group there that came several times. Sometimes they came together. I don't know whether it was exactly that group or Repić's group, but people were interrogated, and they were asking for weapons too. That's what they asked for more, for weapons, that is.
And during the course of these interrogations, were some of the people being interrogated killed?
Oni ljudi koji su izvedeni.
The people who were taken out, I don't know exactly. Shots could be heard. I don't know whether they were killed. They took out two men. We heard two shots. After that, they took out a man to see what was happening, and he told us that those men had been killed. Then he said that if we didn't surrender our weapons, the same fate would befall us.
This other group that you referred to, did you learn where they came from?
We later learned that these men came from Loznica.
Loznica is located in what country? What republic?
In the Republic of Serbia.
Did there come a time when men in the building were subjected to brutal treatment?
Yes,
I'd ask you to please describe.
not once.
I'd ask you to please describe what types of treatment you observed while you were detained in that room.
Vidio sam kako su tražili
I saw them
očeve i sinove da izađu na pozornicu,
asking for fathers and sons to get on the stage,
da se raspremi do gola,
to take off their clothes, to strip,
da
and
oralni seks.
to
Radnja se radila
engage in
ustima
oral
i
sex
polnim organima.
using their
Tražili su
mouths
prvo da to budu
and
očevi sa
genitals.
sinovima.
At first, it had to be fathers with sons, and after that, sons
Ljudi
with
koji su
fathers.
prijavili
The
Neki su bili
people
očevi sinovi, neki nisu.
who
U početku se izgledalo da je
applied, some were fathers and
grupa
sons,
premala.
others were not. At first, it appeared that the group
Onda
was
su
too
tražili,
small. Then
odnosno odvajali
they asked, or
onako
rather
nasumice
separated people at
njihove želje
random,
koji su poslali na tu pozornicu.
at will,
da se
sending them to the
pridruže tim
stage and to join the others.
Approximately how many pairs of fathers and sons were forced to engage in this type of activity?
Pa, 3 para.
2 or 3
očevi, sinovi,
pairs of
a
fathers and
sveukupno je
sons,
bilo
but
negde
the
otprilike
total
8 do 10 parova.
was about 8 to 10 couples.
And what were the other men in the building required to do while this was taking place?
Drugim ljudima je naređeno da
Other men were
sjednu
ordered
naspram te pozornice
to sit facing
i
the
svi su morali
stage,
gledati šta se gore
and
dešava.
they all had to watch what was going on the stage.
What happened if one of the other men in the room did not look at what was going on?
Tražili su da gleda i da prati ta
They required that they watch and follow the happenings on the stage.
Can you approximate for us, as best as you can recall, when this occurred, during what period of your detention?
je bilo negdje
This was
otprilike 10.
roughly between the 10th
Šesti.
and the 11th of June.
U to vrijeme je bio naš
That
praznik,
was when we celebrate
praznik,
our religious
Bajram.
holiday, Bayram.
Did there come a time when some of the men were forced to perform even more violent acts against each other?
da.
Yes.
Could you explain?
Tražili su od nekih ljudi,
They
odnosno nekih parova,
demanded that certain
da
couples, certain
ljudima
men,
odlizu spolne organe.
bite off the
Tražili su od
genitals
ljudi
of others.
da pokažu spolne
They
organe.
asked men to
Jednom čovjeku
show
su i osjekli polni organ i
those
natjerali su ga da to
penises.
pojede koji nije učinio. Poslije toga su natjerali drugog čovjeka koji
They
je to učinio.
actually forced a man to show, and the penis he had bitten off and to swallow it. One man refused
Onda
to,
su
but then the other
tražili
one
od
did actually do it.
jedne osobe da
And then they asked one person to
držalicu od metle,
to
dršku od metle, odnosno, da
push
stavi u
the broom,
zadnjicu jednog čovjeka.
the handle of a broom, into the behind of another man.
In addition to these acts, were men also mutilated with knives?
Before we get there, we should identify who it was who gave these orders. It's described as they, but we should know in more detail who was responsible.
I'd ask you to answer Justice May's question. When you use the word they, can you please describe who specifically you're referring to?
O grupi
The group
osobi pod imenom Repić.
of the person known as Repić.
And was Repić himself personally present when these acts that you've described occurred?
Da, bio je
Yes,
prisutan
he was present.
i on je izvodio te ljude i
And
on je
he
tražio
took
da
out
izađu očevi
those
sinovi.
men, and he demanded that
Odbirao
sons
te
and
ljude
fathers
i
come out. He selected them,
Sva ta dešavanja on je
and
naređivao
all
da se
those happenings, he was the one who gave the orders for them.
Did there come a time when members of this group used knives to mark the bodies of some of the men?
Da,
Yes,
Please describe.
na pozornici
on the stage,
Mislim da nije bilo toga dana,
I don't think it was on that
ali
day,
toga dana su
but
ubijali ljude.
on that day they
koji se nalazili
killed
tu. Poslije toga
men
su
who were there.
naprednici i ljudi koji se
After
nalazili
that,
rasjecali
the men on the
meso između
stage
prstiju, zabadali su nože
had
u
the
bedra
meat
ljudi,
between their fingers
ubijali su
cut.
ruke
They would
ljudima.
stab the men's
Nožem.
thighs and they would stab people's hands.
You yourself, were you subjected to any of this treatment?
Da, meni su probili
Yes,
jednu ruku su
they
probili
stabbed
skroz,
through
drugu
one
nisu.
hand, the other one, the knife didn't go right through.
And do you know the identity of the person who, or the name of the person who stabbed you in your hands?
Tačno ime ne znam,
I don't know
ali je osoba bila krupna,
his
ne visoka,
proper name, but he was a large man,
malo deblja osoba.
rather heavy, but not tall.
Was he a member of Repich's group?
Tačno ne znam,
I don't know exactly,
jer nikad nisu dolazili svi
because they never
zajedno,
all came together.
nekad su dolazile dvije grupe zajedno,
Sometimes
nekad
there would
tri,
be
nekad
two groups together,
jedna, ali
sometimes three, sometimes only
svi isti
one,
ljudi nikad nisu dolazili zajedno.
but they were not always the same group of people.
In addition to the treatment that you've described for us, were there also times when random shots were fired into the group?
Da,
Yes,
toga dana
on that day,
kada su tražili da
when they
izađu očevi i sinovi i kada se vršila
demanded
ta
that
radnja,
sons and fathers come out to do what
Repić
they
je bio
did, Repić
naoružan sa
was
malokalibarskom
armed
puškom
with a small caliber rifle,
i on je pucao po ljudima
and he
koji nisu preživjeli.
shot at people who
Ljudi
did
koje
not
je
survive.
Repić upucao.
That is, the people Repić hit.
During your entire stay at Chelopech, on approximately how many occasions did this type of treatment of the people detained there occur?
Mislite na ubistva ili?
You mean killings? Or
The sexual abuse and the killings, on approximately how many different occasions?
Seksualna zlostavljanja je bila
the sexual abuse
taj jedan dan, a
happened
ubistva
on
se
that
dešavala
one day, and
dana.
the killings happened on 2
više ljudi je
days, or
ubijeno
rather several men
puta.
were killed on 2 occasions.
Were members of the group also made to have fistfights with each other?
Da. To je
Yes, that is true.
Was your father one of the people that was ordered to have a fistfight?
tačno. Da.
Yes,
Njemu je isto bilo naređeno
he was also ordered
i on je imao parnika svoga
to come out, and
bližeg
he
komšiju.
had his pair,
Onda
who was
su
his
prije nego što
next
su
door
naredili,
neighbor,
rekli su ako neće oni
and
da se tuku,
before
oni će ih tući.
they were ordered to do this,
Pošto oni nisu-
they said that
jednostavno
they
nisu
would beat
mogli
them
jedan
if they
drugog udaraju.
refused to fight one another.
Onda su i oni
And
tukli,
as they
tako
simply
da
couldn't
taj
hit each
komšija,
other,
on je
then they beat them.
ležao u komi 2 dana
So that
tu.
this neighbor was in a coma for 2 days.
A moj
After
otac je
that, he
bio
passed away.
Tako pretučen,
Whereas my father was badly
odnosno
beaten
sad
up.
je bio modar
He was black and blue all over
od ti njihovih udaraca. i
from
ne sjeća se
these
toga
blows
šta se
he
sve
had
desilo s njim.
received, and he can't even remember everything that happened to him.
What ultimately happened to your uncle, who you said was detained in that building?
Taj prvi put moja 2 strica nisu preživjela
That first occasion, my 2 uncles did not survive.
na Bajram.
on
10. na 11.
Bayram, that is
Dva
the
strica
night
nisu
between the
preživjela.
10th and the 11th. The two uncles
Jedan
did
je bio
not
mrtav, a
survive.
drugog
One
sam
was dead,
otpratio,
and
još mu je srce radi.
the
Bio je
other
pogođen u
one
čelo.
had his heart was still beating, but he passed away. He was hit in the forehead.
And what ultimately happened to your father?
I on je poginuo,
He was killed too,
odnosno izumrlo u
or
Čelopu.
rather, he died in Chelopek.
Can you describe the circumstances surrounding his death?
Toga dana kada je
On that day,
moj otac izgubio život,
when my father lost
Desilo se
his
negdje
life,
otprilike 26.6.
this happened around the
Mislim da je bio
26th of
srpski
June. I think it was the Serbian
Vidjeldan,
holiday,
ne znam
St.
točno.
Vitus Day. I don't know exactly.
Desilo se negdje poslije podne,
It happened
otprilike
in the
6
afternoon,
sati.
around
Dobili
1600
smo hranu koja
hours.
nas je sledovala, koju nismo
We
uspjeli
received
koristiti.
the food, our rations,
Došao je
which we
Repić
didn't manage to eat.
Sa
When Repić
automatskom
arrived
puškom u ruci,
with an automatic rifle in his hand,
tražio je uobičajeno da mu
he,
pričamo
as usual,
i nekim ljudima koje je on
demanded
tražio neki put od
that
Kulegrada do Zvornika.
we talk about people he was looking
I
for from
ispalio
Kulegrad
jedan rafal
to Zvornik. He
nedaleko od mene.
fired a burst not far from
Pala
me.
su trojica ljudi,
3 men fell
dvojica su
from
ustala,
the shots. 2 got
ranjena,
up, wounded,
ne teži,
not
a ovaj
seriously.
jedan koji nije mogao,
And
on je
this one, who
nastavio dalje
couldn't
ležati.
get up, he
Prišao je
remained
i
on the
pucao
ground.
ga iz pištolja.
He came up to him and shot him with a pistol.
Posle toga je dalje tražio da se
After
priča o
that,
tim
he
ljudima.
went on demanding that we talk
onda je
about
nasumice
these
počeo
people, and then he
po
opened
ljudima.
fire at random at the people,
I ubijati ljudi.
and he started killing them.
Onda je ispalio jedan
Then
rafal,
there
posle
was
toga je ispalio
one burst of
drugi
fire,
rafal.
then another one,
Tom prilikom je
and on that
ubio 20
occasion
ljudi
he killed some
i
20
ranio negdje oko
men
22 čovjeka.
and wounded about 22 others.
Poslije toga
After that,
kad je naredio da se to sve počisti,
when he
našao sam svog
ordered
oca.
that everything
Da
be
leži
cleaned up, I found my father lying there, and I saw that he was no longer alive.
During the course of your detention at Chelopech, did a Serb friend of yours come to the center and have a brief conversation with you?
Da, to je
Yes,
bio moj školski drug,
he was my school fellow.
Goran.
His name was Goran.
Can I ask you to summarize what it was he said to you?
Mene je prozvao
He called me out
i pitao da li nam nešto treba.
and he asked me whether we
Ja
needed
sam mu rekao
anything.
da nam
I
treba vode,
Told him we needed
Pošto
water
to nam je bio nedostatak. jer
because
smo
we were
otprilike
short
negdje
of
dnevno
it,
oko
as
neke 2 kante dobivali.
we would get about 2 canisters
Onda
of
sam ga
water a
zamolio da
day. Then
Zaštiti bar mog oca ako
I
ne
asked
može
him
mene da
to
zaštiti,
protect
pošto sam
at
ja
least
bio
my
mlađi.
father if he couldn't protect me as I was
Onda mi je on
younger.
rekao da
And then he
misli
told
da
me
se to više neće dogoditi što se
that
desilo.
he thought
da će
that
to
what had
izgledati,
happened would not be
odnosno da
repeated,
su intervenisali u
and
SUP
that
Zvornik
the SUP
i da
of
će taj ključ
Zvornik
predati u
had
SUP Zvornik, da će biti
intervened,
otvoren i da
and
više
that
neće
the
moći
key
ući
would be handed
u
in
tu
to the
prostoriju
SUP of
onako kako su
Zvornik,
dosad govorili.
and that from then on people would not be able to enter the building as they had been doing up until then.
Did there come a time when you were taken from Chelopech and brought somewhere else?
Da,
Yes,
tog drugog puta,
that second
kada je pobijeno
time
20 ljudi,
when some 20 men were killed,
možda negdje sutradan ili
maybe the following day
drugi dan,
or 2 days later,
ostatak ljudi koji su bili
the
tu
rest of
zajedno sa ranjenicima,
the men who were
prebačeni
there,
su
together with those who
stari
were
zatvor u
wounded, were
Zvorniku,
transferred to
gdje
the
smo
old
bili
prison
otprilike
in Zvornik,
15 dana.
and we spent about 15 days there.
And Did there come a time when you were transferred from that prison to another location?
Poslije tog boravka u starom zatvoru u
After
Zvorniku,
spending time in the old
prebačeni
prison in
smo
Zvornik, we were
u mjesto
transferred
Batković.
to Batkovići.
And was that another prison camp?
Da, jedan veći logor nego
Yes, it was a larger camp than the one in Chelopek.
And approximately when were you transferred to Batkovići?
otprilike negdje polovinom 7. mjeseca.
Round about
92.
the middle of July 1992.
And approximately how long were you detained there?
Negdje otprilike godinu dana.
About a year.
Can I ask you to describe for the chamber the conditions at Batkovići camp?
To je bila jedna zgrada,
It was a building,
poveća zgrada koja
quite a large building,
je služila za
which
poljoprivredu. za
was
sjemena koja
used to store seeds for agricultural
Prozori koji su
purposes.
bili
The
zatvoreni bili
windows
su
were closed,
zatvoreni sa
and
željeznim
they were
roletnama.
closed up
Koji se
with
nikad nisu
steel
zatvorili.
blinds.
Spavali smo na
We slept
slami
on
koja je bila
straw,
prekrivena ćebetom,
covered with a
a
blanket,
nismo imali ničim da se pokrijemo.
and we had nothing to cover ourselves
Prostor je
with.
bio ograđen žicom,
The compound had a wire
znači nije
fence.
bila bodljikava žica. Imali smo par
We
česmi,
had a couple of
vodu i
water
jedno zajedničko
taps
WC,
and
otvoreno
one
WC.
open toilet.
And the people that were detained there, can you provide us with some details about that? The approximate people that you were aware were detained there, as well as the range of ages, as well as whether men and women were both detained at Batkovići.
Starosni dobi su bili
The
više od
age
60 i manje od 18.
of the people,
Većina je bila vojno sposobna.
most of them were
Bile
able-bodied.
su dvije žene u početku.
There were two women at
Mislim da je
first.
jedna bila tu sa mužem.
I
poslije su
think
negdje
one was there
odvedeni
with her
u unutrašnji
husband,
dom.
then they were taken somewhere, I don't know exactly where.
And were you present when members of the Red Cross, International Committee of the Red Cross, visited Batkovići camp?
Da.
Yes, I was present.
And can you describe what, if anything, occurred prior to visits by the Red Cross?
I njihovog dolaska
Before they arrived,
bili su najavljivani par puta, ali nisu došli.
their arrival would be announced.
Ali prije
It
svakog
was announced a
njihovog
couple of
dolaska
times, but they
bili su
didn't come.
određeni
But
starci od 60
each time,
godina i
before they
djeca
were
mlađa
due
od
to
18
arrive,
godina.
old people over 60
jedna
and
grupa
youngsters under
koju su oni
18
zvali
were
neki
hidden,
specijalci.
and a group that
Također
they
su bili
called
odvođeni
special cases were also taken away somewhere, where I
nisu bili
don't know
prisutni kad
exactly,
je
but
boravio
they
Crveni
weren't
križ.
present when the Red Cross came.
Would they be returned after the Red Cross left?
Po povratku Crvenog križa vratili su i tu.
Yes, they would be returned to the compound when the Red Cross left.
Going to ask at this time that a copy of Prosecution Exhibit 336, pages 28 and 29, be placed on the overhead projector. So I'm going to ask you to take the pointer at your right hand. Do you recognize what's depicted on this map, this copy of Prosecution Exhibit 336?
Ovo je karta
It is a map,
područja Bosne i Hercegovine,
a part of Bosnia and Herzegovina.
ne kompletna
It is not complete.
i poznajem je po svom rukopisu.
And I recognize my signature.
Could I ask the director to zoom in on the right-hand portion of that page? You will see some red circles.
Interpreter's correction, handwriting, not signature.
Da. To je
Yes, that is right.
Sir, the red circles that are on the page, did you make those red circles?
Jesam.
Yes, I did.
Could I ask the director just to zoom out a little bit so we can see all of the circles? And that is good. Maybe we can adjust the page. Are these the locations that you have testified about here today?
Da.
Yes.
I'd ask you to start at the top and please just point to the different locations and just call out the name of each individual location.
Ovo mjesto ovdje,
This place here
to je mjesto gdje sam ja rođen.
is the place where I was
Divić.
born, Divić.
Ovo mjesto ovdje,
This place here
to je mjesto gdje sam bio
is
zatočen.
the place where I was detained for a
gdje se
month
vršila ta ubistva
and
i
where the killings
zlostavljanja.
and sexual abuse took place.
Poslije toga smo odvedeni
After that, we were
u
taken
mjesto Batković,
to
koje se nalazi
Batković,
tu nedaleko
which
od
is
Bijeljine.
here, not far from Bijeljina.
And could I ask you, you haven't circled it, but could you just point to where the town of Zvornik is located?
Tu.
Here it is.
And you've referred to Mali Zvornik. Could you please indicate that?
Here.
Thank you. I'm finished with that exhibit. Sir, I want to return to Chelopech for a minute. Can I ask you to summarize for us how many men were killed that you saw? Can you summarize for us with an approximate number how many men in total were you aware were killed at Chelopech during your detention there?
Negdje otprilike 30 ljudi.
Approximately some 30 men.
Da sva ubistva su vršena
All those
u toj
killings
prostoriji gdje smo bili zatočeni.
took place in the room in which we
Za
were
ljude koji su
detained.
izvedeni,
As for the people that
Ne
were
znam da li su
taken
bili
out,
neki
I
sam
don't know
koji
whether
su
they
vidjeli
were
njih
killed. I saw
dvojicu,
some of them,
ove
3 or
ostale
4
nisam
of them.
vidio, niti sam čuo da
As
su
for the
pojavili.
others, I never saw them again, nor have I heard of them since.
And how many men who were detained there are you aware of were subjected to sexual abuse of the type you've described?
Negdje oko 30 ljudi.
Some 30 men.
Now, after your release from custody, did you come to learn some years later that Mr. Repic was the subject of a prosecution in the Republic of Serbia?
Da,
Yes,
to sam pročitao u
I read that
nekim novinama.
in a
Ne znam točno na nekim
newspaper.
novinama.
I don't know exactly which one.
And was the subject of that prosecution in part the crimes that you've described for us as having occurred in Chelopech?
Da, to je bio predmet.
Yes, that was the subject
Mislim da sam pročitao da
of
je
that
priznao da je
prosecution, and I think that I read that
ubio
he
8 ljudi.
confessed that
Kako
he
je to
had
došlo,
killed
sudije ne znam.
8 men. How the trial ended, I don't know.
And that prosecution was conducted in the Republic of Serbia.
Da,
Yes,
negdje tamo oko Šapca.
somewhere near Shabac, I think, in that area.
Are you aware of the outcome of that case?
Ne.
No, they
I have no further questions.
Mr. Krum, is it a Defense Exhibit 56 which deals with this? If you could check it.
Yes, sure, I'll check.
Defense Exhibit 56.
Yes, Mr. Milosevic.
Let me just have a look at the number of this witness, because the witness was not protected to begin with up until today. 1164, is that it?
1461.
1461, right. Mr. 1461, let's clear something up first. This key issue with respect to the crimes that took place and that you described as having taken place in Čelopek. Do you know the name of the man whose nickname was Repić, interpreter's note, pigtail in translation?
To ime sam
Answer,
saznao
yes. I learnt about that
sam bio
name
zatvoren u Batkoviću.
while I was detained in Batkovići. Question, what was his name? Answer, Dušan Vučković. Dušan Vučković, nicknamed Repić, right. That agrees with the information I have. Do you know that this particular man was at the head of a group of criminals criminals who perpetrated a number of crimes in the area that you're referring to?
To mi nije poznato.
Answer, no, I don't know about that. Question, and do you know that it was precisely the authorities in Serbia who got news of their criminal behavior, this kind of criminal behavior that they engaged in? Answer, all I know was that legal proceedings were brought against that individual. Question, yes, that is the consequence of the fact that I've just mentioned. Do you know that this man, Vučković, nicknamed Repić or Pigtail, and as we saw his photograph, I assumed that he was called Repić because he wore this pigtail, that he was a citizen of Serbia? Answer, yes.
To sam saznao,
I learned about that, actually.
to sam
Question?
saznao u Batkoviću.
Answer, I learned about that in Batkovići. Question, all right, you doesn't matter where you learned of it. I'm just asking you whether you know about it. And do you know that it was on the basis of the facts that they were citizens of Serbia, in fact, for which the authorities in Serbia learnt they had committed some crimes on the territory of Bosnia, that these people were in fact arrested? They were taken into custody by the authorities of Serbia.
Ne znam.
Answer, no, I don't know that. Answer, well, do you know that these people were taken to trial at the district court in Šabac for war crimes, in fact? Answer, I read about this for Repić in the papers. Question, you read it in the papers, right. Now, do you know that they were tried as far back as 1993 on the basis of the facts that following the criminal code of our country, war crimes are the gravest crimes, considered to be the gravest crimes, and that according to the information that the authorities had, this man and his collaborators had perpetrated those crimes, so he was arrested and he was tried precisely for war crimes. Answer, well, I don't know why he was arrested, but it said in the papers that, yes, he was accused for having perpetrated the crimes in Čelopek. Questions, all right, so you read about this in the papers, but we can find the documents. I don't want to enter into that now, but you presented some of the atrocities that you saw happen and experienced yourself. So I'm not going to ask you about that, because I think Mr. Groom asked you about that at great length. I just want to ask you whether you are aware of the fact that when the authorities in Serbia learned about these crimes, arrested those people and took them to trial and tried them for war crimes.
Mr. Milosevic.
And we have documents.
Just a moment. Don't interrupt. We have the papers. We will have them recorded. It's thought they're D56. During the adjournment, it may be that we can actually track that down. So there's no point asking the witness about them. It's simply something he read, whereas we have the papers. Yes, now let's move on, if you want to another topic.
Well, precisely because I know that the opposite side is well aware of the fact that these people were arrested by the authorities of Serbia and taken to trial and tried for war crimes, I don't then understand why this witness has been brought here to testify against me, because the authorities in Serbia prosecuted the war crimes that he has just described. But let's go back to the beginning.
Have you any questions? Look, we'll hear your speeches in due course. We're not here for that now. Now, as you've said, this witness has come here and given very difficult evidence. So I suggest that you deal with his cross-examination as expeditiously as you can. I take it there's no dispute about his evidence about what happened in Čelopek.
Mr. May, as to what happened in Čelopek, the authorities of Serbia, on the basis of the knowledge they had, arrested these people and the courts tried them. So I don't want to go back to that topic. What I want to do is to go back to the beginning of the testimony of Mr. B. 1461, related to the issues he talked about and the circumstances he described with respect to the attacks on the village of Divić and all the rest of it. Mr. 1461, was there a political party that acted in an organized fashion in Divić? Answer, I'm not a politician. I don't really know whether there was a political party, but as far as I know, I don't think there was. Question, from this, may I take it that you were never a member of a party at all? Answer, that's right. Did you hear about the organization of the Patriotic League that had its representatives in Divić? Just give me a yes or no answer. Answer no. All right, fine. At the beginning, in response to a question from Mr. Groom, you said that in Zvornik a meeting or rally was held, rather, which was devoted to peace, life together, and some positive goals taken by and large, if I can put it that way. Answer, yes. When was the meeting held? Answer, roughly around the 7th of April. Question, the 7th of April. That means just one day after the recognition of Bosnia-Herzegovina's independence. Is that right? Answer, well, I don't know when it was recognized exactly. Answer, on the 6th of April. And then the rally was held in Zvornik on the 7th of April for a life together with no ethnic conflicts and so on. Well, in your opinion, would you say that the population of Zvornik had opted to preserve Yugoslavia and a life of communality within Yugoslavia? Answer, at the rally, we could see that, yes, the people were in favor of life together and for peace, a life in common under conditions of peace. Question, does that mean then that the people of Zvornik, both Muslims and Serbs alike, who had lived there, were opposed to the SDA positions on Alija Izetbegović, who favored the separation of Bosnia from Yugoslavia, its secession and everything else that happened and led up to the crisis that occurred? Answer, well, I don't know what they were in favor of, but they were in favor of peace, and they said they didn't need any kind of war, and that quite simply people wanted to live a peaceful life like they did before. Question, well, I do believe that. I believe that people strove to ensure that, because anybody normal would be in favor of peace. You say that the war in Zvornik, and you say this on page 2 of your statement, paragraph 5, began on the 8th of April. So on the 6th of April, Bosnia and Herzegovina was given recognition. On the 7th of April, you held a rally in favor of a life together, and the conflict broke out on the 8th of April. Is that it? Answer, yes. Well, who then created that conflict? Who caused the conflict? Answer, I wasn't there, nor do I know who caused it. Question, all right. Do you know that it was at the multi-party elections that came before all these events? The Serbs won the majority in Zvornik, the SDS party, in fact, that they had the majority vote. Answer, I know nothing about politics, and I was not a politician of any kind, and I think you'd have to ask one of the politicians that question. Question, all right, fine. I'm asking you because you can't tell me who caused the crisis. Does it seem to you to be logical that the Serbs who had the authority in Zvornik, that it was up to them to win over Pound authority if they already had it?
He's given you his answer as to this. He's not involved in it. It's pointless to ask him further questions, particularly of that sort. And it may not assist us very much as to who started it. The real point of his evidence concerns partly Divic, of course, but also about what happened when he was in detention and the conditions which existed there. Yes, let's move on.
Mr. May, what happened during his detention, I myself and the authorities in Serbia personally consider to be a war crime, and those crimes were tried in Serbia 10 years ago. So I have nothing to ask him on that score as to the details, because to every normal man, everybody normal would feel sick listening to the details that were put forward. It's enough to turn one's stomach. Now tell me this, the fighting for Zvornik, as you say, went on for 2 days, is that right? Answer, yes, roughly. Question, but you weren't there at the time. You were in Divic all the time, is that right? Answer, yes, that's right. Question, you say in your statement that the fighting took place between the Serb army and the Muslim inhabitants, is that what you said? Answer, yes. Question, all right then. These Muslim inhabitants, did they have weapons? Answer, I don't know what they had, but I heard about it from people who came from Zvornik to Divic. Question. Now, these Muslim forces, did they fight in an organized fashion? Who was their commander? Do you have any information about that? Answer, I have no information about that, nor do I know whether it was organized or unorganized. I don't know. Question, well, do you know whether in Zvornik a Muslim crisis staff had been set up, perhaps? Answer, no, in Zvornik I don't know about that. You don't know about that? And do you know whether those Muslim forces had any form of heavy weaponry? Answer, I don't know that either. Question, in your statement you say that in the fighting in Zvornik there were no people who were wounded or killed, no casualties. Answer, according to what the people who had come from there said, that's what I heard. Question, so there were no casualties, no persons killed or wounded. Answer, I think in my statement I say that I don't know actually whether there were any persons killed or wounded. Question, do you know who Dr. Asim Yuzbasic is? Answer, no. He was a deputy in the BH Assembly and he was from Zvornik, that is to say from your parts, but you say you don't know him. Answer, no, I don't. Question, do you know who Izet Behimagic is? Answer, I worked in the field, I went round to do my job, so I don't really know the people from the municipality that well. Question, all right, but do you know, you read the papers, I assume, and listened to the radio. Do you know that these two people at a press conference held in Tuzla, and that took place on the 10th of April 1992, and it was published by the Sarajevo Daily Oslobođenje. I assume you read the daily papers. Sarajevo Oslobođenje said that they had just come from Zvornik and that the Serb forces had a lot of casualties, wounded and killed, and that the Muslim forces, up until their departure, had about 15 persons injured and 1 person killed. That's what they said, that according to the writings of the Oslobođenje paper. Answer, I don't know about that. Question, but that does not coincide with what you learnt about and what you have testified about. Is that right? All right, then tell me this. If there were armed conflicts indeed, and if they went on for 2 days, does that mean that there were 2 sides shooting at each other, at one another? Answer, well, I don't know exactly what the conflicts were, whether they were clashes between 2 parties, 2 sides, or what? I really can't say. All right, Mr. 1461, you say that the conflicts between the Serb army and the Muslim citizens in Zvornik, that's how you refer to them. Now, this Serbian army, can we call it the citizens of Zvornik of Serb ethnicity? So, well, we could put it that way too. I don't know who those people were, actually. The people who came from Zvornik who informed us about that either. The events in Zvornik, they didn't know who. You didn't know them, or they didn't know? Question, well, in Zvornik, was it not a conflict between the Serbs and Muslims, or rather, wasn't this part of the civil war that had started after the recognition of Bosnia-Herzegovina and the beginning of the attack on the army throughout the territory of Bosnia-Herzegovina? Wasn't that it? Answer, I don't know why the conflict broke out. Question, all right, fine. Can you testify at all about anything linked to these conflicts in Zvornik? Because, as you yourself say now and in your statement, that when all this was going on, all this fighting was going on, you never actually left Divić. Is that right? Answer, well, I was there until I left. Till they moved us out. Question, so you saw nothing that actually went on in Zvornik? Answer, no. Question, so everything you're telling us is on the basis of what you heard, is that right? Answer, yes. Question, tell me, who brought this information to you from Zvornik? Can you give us the name and surname of the person that told you about all this? Answer, I don't know. Question, were they some locals who came to inform you, or did somebody else come from Zvornik to inform you about what was going on? Answer, I think they were people from Zvornik. Question, you were asked by Mr. Groom whether you came to the conclusion that something was happening in Zvornik when you saw some corpses flowing down the Drina River. Is that what you said? Answer, he asked me whether I assumed that something was happening somewhere else when I saw corpses flowing down the Drina River. Question, yes, but he mentions Zvornik specifically in his question, and you can check that on the transcript.
Yes, well, we're now going to adjourn, but before we do, Judge Kwan has the exhibit to which we referred earlier.
Yes, it was Defense Exhibit 56 under seal, which seems to be a report of the District Public Prosecutor's Office of Republic of Serbia in Sabac, and it is a request to the District Court investigating judge asking that an investigation is to be conducted against Mr. Vojin Vukovic and Duško Vukovic, also known as Rapic. But the report only deals with some killings, torturings, but it does not mention about the sexual abuse. I think that's enough.
Let me return that to the court.
We can later get some indictment or formal documents later. Can we not?
Your Honor, the prosecution is in possession of some of the documents, and whatever prosecution is in possession of, we will produce to the court.
Perhaps the legal officer would come up, please. We'll adjourn now, 20 minutes.
Ores, svoji volili